What's up, Alor? I need to get a new webcam. This thing is so obnoxious. Can't handle it. Let's see. You know what? I wonder. Where did I put that? I wonder if that works any better for lighting purposes. Let's see. Maybe. The crackery must flow indeed. Is this? Gosh. Why camera settings? Why are you like this? Okay, I think that's fine. I don't know, it still looks a little weird. Goodness. Twitch, why'd you drop so many frames? What's your problem, bro? It's just a prank, bro. Let's see. Color correction. Do I need any more red? No. Alright, I'm gonna go with it. It's fine. It's fine. It's good enough. And good enough. Wait, actually, no, it's not good enough. The chroma key needs to be adjusted. Let's see. We are flickering the chair. Let's get better green recognition. Nope, wrong direction. You guys are getting the behind the scenes on what Krydax gets to do. Super fun, isn't it? Scroll. It's a little better. Yeah, I think that's in the right direction. Higher value, lower value. Go up a little bit. And then we scroll up that until things get weird. That's weird. Right about there should be good. All right, Sumerian, what's on the menu today? Well, obviously, podcast episode 2, aka the title of the stream. Yeah, exactly, Salsa. Melvor stream incoming, episode 1. No. To your chagrin, that's not happening. Maybe someday. But yeah, probably an episode of Pyanodons after, unless I'm just like really tired for some reason and don't feel like it. I think everything's ready to go. So we'll just hang out for a minute here, let people show up. Let me actually run an ad real quick so we can remove the pre-roll ads for the next half hour. Let me do that real quick. Where's my web browser? There you are. Oh, I should probably also open the Friday Facts. Friday Facts. Chain stops 2.0. Have that ready. And then pull that up on Twitch. There we go. yeah. Sumerian, no worries. So essentially, let's see. The first podcast. Sorry, I'm halfway distracted. More than halfway. The first podcast, we introduced the podcast. We talked about the last 5 or so weeks of The Factory Must Grow. That's the podcast. We talked about the last few weeks of Factorial Friday facts. And then I think that's all we did. Was there something else? I think that was pretty much it. Because the 5 weeks of Friday facts put together was quite a bit, actually. So we had no shortage of things to talk about. I got on a few tangents, of course. Twitch seems to be struggling today. It's dropping sections of frames, so that's probably what happened to you marked at home. I don't know if it's Twitch or my internet's a little weird today. As far as I can tell, I haven't changed a damn thing. So, it's either the internet provider or the Twitch thing. Yeah, Sumerian, that's a great question. So for those of you that are kind of incoming or weren't here last week, the mods will post kind of interesting questions to a Discord channel that I'm monitoring a little bit closely. Because I'm kind of doing a podcast, it's hard to watch Twitch chat super closely as you guys discuss things and whatnot. So I'll be able to answer that in the podcast. Most certainly. If we have time, that is. I already have a decent amount of listener questions to answer. Let me turn off the music. So that's good. Oh yeah, the mod spotlight. Yes. Yes, indeed. Okay. Oh, I never ran an ad. I still need to do that. Don't worry, I won't do anything important in the next 2 minutes. Okay, so there's that. Casually finishes pyanodons. I don't think that is a thing. There's no such thing as casually and pyanodons. Those are antithetical, I believe. Will there be a mod blacklight? Excuse me. Gotta get it all out before the podcast starts here. Make sure I'm comfortable. Okay. Okay. 4K hours completion time. I think we can beat that. And I'm actually a relatively fast player. And so I do think if we ever finish pyanodons, it will be in under 4,000 hours. What's even crazier, though, is they're not done. They're working on their version of space, and I don't know exactly what that'll look like, but pyanodons space exploration age is going to be nuts. And I'm just like, and then they're going to probably incorporate all the space age stuff into it. So it's like, it just keeps getting bigger as if it wasn't big enough. And there's already a very small amount of people that have beat pyanodons. So it kind of makes me laugh. Yeah, it is going to be insane. And I also love it. Whether or not I'll ever beat it, who knows? But I do love it. Okay, let me I'm going to go under the radar here. So if you guys have questions, feel free to post them in Twitch chat or to keep chatting about stuff. But the mods will kind of relay anything that's stream related. And I will get to viewer questions at some point during the stream, so I will answer things then. And mods, I mean, you know, you guys are great, but if you feel like it and there's something I'm just like flat out wrong about or incorrect, or I'm looking for an answer to something and I don't know it, feel free to post that in the Discord too. Something that's pertinent to whatever it is I'm talking about. But yeah, I think I'm gonna get rolling here. Let me just make sure I'm all set. Turn off the on-screen Twitch chat. Yep, okay, thank you for that. We did that, and start recording. Sweet. Make sure I'm in frame properly. Am I like balanced in the middle? I feel like I need to move the camera slightly this way. Okay, there we go. Is that better? Yeah, that's a little better. Blah, 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 blah. Hello. Hello, everyone. No, we're not going to do that. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of The Factory Must Grow. Joining us on the line today is Twitch chat again. Hey, Twitch, how you guys doing today? From all over the world, probably. I know at least some of you are in Europe, some of you are in the Americas, and I'm sure many other countries. That's one of the cool things about the factory genre is we have, I don't know, there's a much larger interest in the genre, I think, around the world, and it's pretty cool. Anyway, today we're going to look at another mod spotlight. We're going to discuss the most recent Friday Factorio facts. We're going to talk about a Satisfactory video that came out, and we're going to get into some listener questions. The mod spotlight today is another one of my favorites. I'm sure we'll get into viewer recommended mod spotlights at some point, but you know, I'm still going with some of my favorites. And this one is additional paste settings fixed. So additional paste settings is originally created 7 years ago. It is an old mod, and it was taken over by Bilbo99 about 3 years ago, apparently, when it was abandoned by the original mod maker, and it only has about 12,000 downloads, which in my opinion is criminally underrated because this is one of the best quality of life mods in the game. I mean, I'm not even joking. The amount of time it saves you is absurd because what it does is it allows you to paste your assembler recipes into chests, which you might be like, oh, I can already do that. But the problem is right now, when you shift right click on an assembler in Factorio, and you shift left click, what it does is it adds an entire stack of what you want. And you can't modify the amounts without going into the chest itself and then modifying the amounts manually. Sometimes it's way too much. You're like, I don't need, 500 of this super expensive item or whatever the stack size is. And so what's really nice is with additional paste settings, what you can do is you can set it to a certain amount of recipes. And so what I do, and there's a bunch of settings, which is great, but what I do is I set it to 5x the recipe amount, or 5 times the recipe amount. And what that means is every time I shift left click on a requester chest, it will add exactly 5 recipes worth of inputs to that requester chest. And what's even cooler is you can set it to be cumulative. And so you can keep shift left clicking to add more chunks of 5. And so if I want, for example, 20 recipes worth of requests, you can shift left click 4 times, if you have the amount set to 5, and get 20. You can set it to 1 recipe per click, or 10, or whatever number you like. I found 5 to be a nice middle ground, to be small enough. Every once in a while I have to change it to 1 or 2 if there's a really expensive, modded recipe or something. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Okay, I'm being corrected. Apparently it's based on the assembler speed. It tries its best, but it's usually wrong. Okay, yeah. All I know is the vanilla shift pasting into logistics chest was not very good, and it often is not the numbers I want. And additional paste settings fixes that. It also allows you to paste into inserters and even belts and combinators to get similar effects. So with the inserter, it will create a condition and you can set whether it's a less than condition or an equal to or a greater than, and you can also set the number. So you can shift right click your assembler and then shift left click an inserter, and it will say, oh, I'll only insert if that recipe result is less than 10, for example. So you can really quickly create these logistic conditions on amounts of items and such. And it's really cool. It even has these little numbers that fly up over the chest that show up. And if all of that wasn't great enough, check this out. If you're building a bot mall, often you will have a requester chest that you want to work for multiple buildings. Maybe you have 2 buildings that interact with each other, and they share a lot of ingredients, but not exactly the same ingredients. So you want to use the same chest. Well, you can just paste both into the chest, and they'll merge and add on top of each other, so they won't overwrite each other. So if I've got one thing that requires 10 gears and 10 copper, and I have another thing that requires 10 gears and 10 iron, and I paste them both, I'll end up with 20 gears, 10 copper, and 10 iron. And it's just so cool. It also even has a setting, which I haven't really used yet, but it has an invert setting for buffer chests. So if you paste into a buffer chest, it'll actually put in the output item rather than the input recipe, which is what gets put into requester chests. And so if you want a buffer chest to hold the output, you can paste that into a buffer chest. So anyway, really sweet mod. Additional paste settings fixed. I highly recommend it for your quality of life needs in Factorio. And you can even change the settings. I know I was mostly talking about the recipe amount setting, but you can change it to a time amount if you want it to paste 20 seconds worth of crafting or 60 seconds worth of crafting into the inserter or the requester chest, etc. And you can also modify it to do stacks. If you just want it to request 4 stacks, or you want the inserter to stop at 3 stacks worth or whatever, you can set that properly. And so that could even be helpful for train stops or combinators in particular, if you're using combinators with the additional paste settings. So anyway, highly recommend it. It's a great mod. And that is the mod spotlight for today. So if you have any mod spotlights or mods that you think should be spotlighted, whether it's in Factorio or another game in the genre, feel free to post those in the Discord and I will take a look at them. Our next topic today is the most recent Factorio Friday Facts, Train Stops 2.0. This is FFF 403. I can't believe they've done 403 Factorio Friday Facts, especially when you factor in that they haven't done one every week since they started. There were quite a few weeks without them for a while, and they just restarted them, when they started teasing things for Factorio 2.0. So I'm pretty excited that we've already passed 400. It's crazy to me. Anyway, Train Stops 2.0 is all about more features they're adding to train stops, not the trains themselves, but the actual, train stops that you put next to the train tracks. Because right now, they don't have a lot of features, and it really started to bother the playtesters. Clonin, the person who wrote this article, said, as with most features, these were inspired by annoyances and pain during playtesting. So I just think it's so cool that the dev team for Factorio actually plays their game, and they play their game the way that their players play the game. And I know that sounds so flipping basic. You're like, wait, don't all devs play their game? And I think that's true. I think all devs do play the game, but not all devs play the game the way their players play the game. And I think that is surprisingly rare. And maybe in AAA studios it happens that way, but then the bosses who have no idea, how players actually play the game override the devs' recommendations. I'm not sure, but it seems like it's just rare these days that devs are adding in things that players actually want, which is so ridiculously basic. I don't know how that's rare, but it is. Anyway, the Factorio devs are great at this, and they're like, they actually play the game, and they're like, this is annoying. I don't want this to work this way, so I'm going to change it. And then they do, and then everybody loves it. There are very few changes I know of that the Factorio devs have made that players have not liked. I mean, as far as I've been following and playing the game, none come to mind. I want to say there were one or two things, especially before the full release, that might have been a little unpopular. But yeah, anyway, devs are great. So back to the actual Train Stops 2.0, one of the first things they mention is that the Train Stop UI, when the little windows open, when you click on a train stop, right now it'll show trains with this stop, and you can see all the different trains that have that stop on the list. Now it also has a tab for on the way trains, and you can see trains that are on the way to that train stop, which is pretty cool. With that, you can, kind of check if any trains are coming or anything is weird with that. Sorry, I'm getting the window arranged for Twitch chat here. So yeah, the second thing you can do is naming the train stops right now is kind of tedious, because if you have a train limit of, say, 1, and you've got the iron drop-off point, and you have some system that's disabling train stops when the train stops are full, you only want your iron trains to deliver iron when, the train stop increases its train limit. Well, right now, if you were to add a train stop and you were to copy the name iron drop off, all of your iron trains would want to show up there at the same time, because they're like, ooh, there's a place to go on my schedule, so I'll go there now. But you maybe only have a train system that has room for one train at a time, and you're supposed to have a train limit of 1. And so that would be a big problem. Now you've got 50 iron trains coming to this station. There's only room for 1, and it just doesn't work. So what they did is they changed it so that when you copy a train stop name, it automatically imports the train limit, and it's the lowest train limit of stops with that name, which is really cool. And if you already set the train limit separately, it won't overwrite that. So it's kind of only if you haven't done it yet, it'll just copy in the train limit type thing, which is a really cool system. I've actually made suggestions like this in many games over many Discords that how do I explain this? A lot of times settings should be copied from one thing to the next. And I will often hear people say, but what if you already changed it or you don't want it to be that? And it's like, well, if the player already set property whatever to their own value, then don't overwrite it. But if a player hasn't set it, you should copy it over. And I think a lot of games should do that. And even though sometimes it can create a little bit of surprising behavior for players, it often leads to the results that players want. Because if you're copying from one building to another, you usually have the settings the same. And if you really need a different setting, you'll change it. And so it really gets the best of both worlds. If you set the train limit first, it just keeps whatever you set. And if you don't set the train limit, it copies it from the train stop you copy it from. And it really just makes it way easier that way. So that's a pretty good change. It also copies the color, which, is just a nice quality of life thing, I guess. I tend to not color my train stops. Maybe I need to do that. I don't know. I don't even really notice the color of train stops anymore. So maybe that makes me a boring, soulless husk of a person. But I haven't really been someone to color my train stops. Often I don't even color my trains. So maybe I need to get better at that, but I don't know. Anyway, so that's a pretty cool feature. Next feature is if you hover over a train stop in the map view, it actually shows the train stop name, which it doesn't do right now. And right now there's the button in the map view where you can either enable showing all the train stops or enable showing none of them. And you can't kind of have this middle ground where you can see the ones you want to look at, but kind of ignore the rest of them the rest of the time. Anyway, The other thing is that you can copy from the map view, and that's pretty cool too. So you can shift right click and then shift left click on a different train stop from the map view itself on the little circular dot that represents a train stop. That's really cool. I think being able to do things from the zoomed out map view is really nice. Sorry, I guess I didn't explain that. I said from the map view, but I meant from the zoomed out map view, where it's not actually showing you the game rendering, but it's like the map view rendering. Those are kind of two different zoom types in the map view, and it's from the zoomed out map view you can copy train stop settings and such, and that's really cool. It also, when you hover over the train stop, shows you the trains that are pathing to that station at the moment, and it shows you their pathways. So you can see if a train's on the way, it'll kind of show you that red line on the train tracks. That's really neat. Next thing that they added is bulk renaming train stops. This is going to be really important because of the new train systems that allow you to set train groups and be able to group 10 trains to do the exact same path, and you're going to add a lot of things to that path. Now we have conditional train stopping, or I forget exactly what they called it, but essentially you can set if else type conditions on whether trains go to stops or not. I think a lot more players are going to have really just one or two or three groups of trains, and then they'll have a group of train stops, often for each provided item and each requested item. And now, since you're going to have a lot of train stops that are going to be doing the same thing, it's going to be really annoying to rename them all. Their example in the Friday Facts was, what if you name them all Cooper Droop instead of Copper Drop, and you're stuck with it. Now you have 500 stations named Cooper, and you need to rename them all to Copper. So now what you can do is you can bulk rename. When you want to apply a name change, you can hold Control, and it will rename all the stops with the same name at the same time. That's really neat. They also mentioned this, which is kind of an aside, but I think it's a big deal. It also works for train groups, which makes sense, and logistics groups. And logistics groups is something we haven't talked about yet on the podcast because it was, 382, Factorio Friday Facts 382. So it was a couple months ago now. But logistics groups is a really cool feature, and I'm going to tangent for a second on that. What it allows you to do is set a grouping of logistics requests, and I could name it, for example, rail requests. And maybe I want to have chests on various places of Nauvis, the home planet, that have all the things I need to build a rail station and such. And so it wants to request, I don't know, some number of inserters and 100 or 500 rails and a couple rail stations and a few logistics bot, what are they called? Roboports. And it wants to request a bunch of bots and all that. And I want all of that to be requested. I could just name that the rail station group, and then when I build a new chest, I can add the rail station group to it. So it will just automatically request all of those things. And if I change the request in one place, it changes it in all places. So maybe I get a new, I'm trying to think, maybe you were requesting assembler 2s in this group, and now you've upgraded your tech and you've got assembler 3s. Now you want to request assembler 3s in all those places that had assembler 2s. You can just change the logistics group and it will change all of the connected systems. It's a really cool system, and you can check and uncheck each of the groups individually for a chest or any place that requests logistics. Even for the player, you can turn on or off your rail requests at any given time. That's the one I'm the most excited about, because right now, if I want to request all the things I need to do rail building, then, I need rails, I need signals, I need train stops, I maybe need locomotives and cargo wagons. If I want to be adding the trains, I need maybe some extra inserters and chests or warehouses or what have you. And maybe I don't want those things in my inventory for most of the gameplay, but when I'm working on rail stuff, I do. Now I can just turn off my logistics bot's requests for all the rail stuff and then get rid of it for the moment. And then I have more inventory space when I'm doing other factory building. So that one I think is going to help on saving inventory space depending on what type of building you're going to be doing. And then you can trash all the things you're not requesting. And so you can really make it so I'll request the train stuff. And then as soon as I uncheck it, it throws all the train stuff into your trash slots, and the bots will come pick it up and take it out of your inventory. And I'm really looking forward to the bottler butts. Bottler butts? Butler bots. but butler bots. Yeah, I want the butler bots to pick up all the stuff out of my inventory. Anyway, that's going to be nice. Moving on to the next feature that they actually teased in the Friday facts is Flintstones. Flintstones. What does that have to do with Factorio? Well, right now there was a little bit of an issue where if your train got stuck over the water, because you can put train tracks over water now with the pylons that they added for elevated rails, then you have nowhere to go. They haven't added the floaties that freight forwarding added, and so you can't just swim. So you can't even get out of the train when it's over the water. So they had to add an ability to manually push the train, which is hilarious. And so they called it the Flintstone style pushing. And, you kind of pedal your feet like the cartoons and slowly move the train to where you can finally get out. I'm hoping that never happens to me because it goes really slow, but it'll work in a pinch. And they show a little GIF on the website of, the character hopping into a cargo wagon, and you can even pedal a cargo wagon somewhere, which is really funny. The next feature was remote driving of trains, which is super handy given that you're going to be on other planets a lot of the time. So if you have a deadlock that you need to fix, or some other error that you have, or you need to position a train somewhere that it isn't, you can just manually drive a train, turn it onto manual mode, and use the actual train driving controls. I assume you can also do the control click that you can right now, where it will go to a specific spot in your rail network. So it's kind of semi-automatic driving. I assume you can do that remotely as well, and that's really handy. The next feature is rail planning from map mode. I love that they're adding more features to the zoomed out version of map mode, so you don't always have to zoom in to do things. Now you can do, again, from that zoomed out perspective where they're not actually showing the rendered game, but kind of the map view game, you can kind of, rather than just pasting rail blueprints, which is what you can do right now, you can do the rail planner where it, finds a path to where your mouse is and you can connect things. One thing that's in the GIF that they show on the website is the new half angle rails, which if you haven't been following the Friday facts, you might know, you might not know that they added eight more? Yeah, 8 more rail directions. Right now, there's only 8 directions total. There's, left, right, up, down, and then the 4 kind of 45-degree angles. They don't look exactly like 45 degrees, which is a weird optical illusion, but they are. And they added all of the in between those directions. So now there's a total of 16 directions, which is really weird. And in the GIF that they show of the person doing the rail planning, it kind of the rail planner automatically uses those half angles. And I'm not going to lie, it looks really weird. Like my skin crawls a little bit when I see it. And I just kind of want to run away and hide from those new half angle things. And by half angle, they're like 22.5 degree angles. They're very, very small, weird angles. Now, they're not exactly 22.5 to get real technical about it, which is, I guess, what this podcast is for. I think they actually broke it down in the Factorio Friday Facts. I can't remember now, but one of them is slightly less than 22.5, and the other one is slightly greater than 22.5. I think to make all the visuals work or something. I can't remember exactly, but it's close enough that you won't really notice that it's not perfectly in between the diagonal and the vertical or horizontal. Anyway, what I'm hoping is that you can disable the automatic usage of the half angle rails in the rail planner, because I do think visually it looks worse when you use the half angles mixed with the straight rails, mixed with the regular diagonal angles. I think it just doesn't look very clean. It is very nice to be able to use the half angles for intersections or for specific paths along terrain. Let's say you're following along a coastline and it's kind of not quite at 45 degrees, but not quite vertical. Then it'll be really nice to use the half angle for like a long straight section for that. But what I don't want to use the half angle for is just random corners. I'd rather have a nice, it goes vertical until it gets to the corner, and then it goes a 90-degree turn, and then it goes horizontal, rather than a weird half angle turning into a horizontal type thing, which is what they're showing in the GIF. So I'm hoping you can disable that, and it will not automatically use the half angles for you, and you can just use the half angles when you choose to. Hopefully that'll be a thing. I'm guessing a mod. Well, I don't actually know if a mod can interact with how the rail planner works or not. I'm not sure if that's possible. So I guess we'll see. Anyway, I do love that there's the half angles. I just hope that we can maybe avoid them if we want to avoid them from the automatic rail builder. And otherwise, we're just going to have to use blueprints, I guess, for all of our rail building. One other thing that's in the GIF, they don't mention this, but it's really cool. It automatically goes over the water. So they're building the rails, and it looks like they're just building rails normally through the map view. And when they mouse over water, it automatically turns into the elevated rail planner, and it shows, the rail requirement that is going to be, blueprinted when they click, and it shows having the ramps up and the pylons and stuff. And then it looks like they click a button to turn that off. So I'm guessing there's going to be a hotkey that will change your rail planner from regular rails to elevated version. That may already be a hotkey. I'm not sure. But it looks like it's a hotkey because it doesn't seem like they're just holding shift or something. Because if they were just holding shift, I guess maybe they're holding it for a long time in the GIF. It's hard to explain to those of you who are just listening, but go watch the GIF on Factorio Friday Facts 403. It's at the bottom of the page, and see what you guys think. But anyway, that's not super important. I'm sure it'll be great quality of life regardless of which way it works. So yeah, that's Factorio Friday Facts 403, and I'm pretty excited about that. It's going to be really cool to have all these new rail features. I do think, as much as I love LTN, I'm going to play with vanilla rails upon the release of Space Age, and I think it's going to be really cool. I'm excited to see how much you can do with vanilla rails, and it might be enough that I don't need LTN anymore. We'll see. I don't know. Pyanodons may always require LTN, but people are telling me it's just force build to build the trains over the water. So it may not have anything to do with pressing a hotkey or not. It may just be force build and super force build, which is another thing they teased, where you can build landfill and the thing on top of the landfill at the same time in terms of blueprints, which is really cool. Anyway, moving on, that's the Factorio Friday Facts. The next thing I want to talk about is the Satisfactory video that came out, was it yesterday? I think it was just yesterday. And what is today? Today is March 24th. So I think it came out on March 23rd, maybe the 22nd. And they released a video titled, what was it titled? I don't know the title, but it's essentially what isn't coming in Satisfactory 1.0. If you don't know what Satisfactory is, then, well, you should. But if you don't, it's an awesome game. It's a 3D, the simplest way to put it is 3D Factorio. I don't think that really does it justice. It is a very different game than Factorio. There are some core design philosophies, I think, that differ between the Satisfactory team and the Factorio team. I don't think either one is worse or better. Some people like to... This is just a gaming community thing that really bothers me. Why does everyone have to gatekeep and argue over what's better? Xbox versus PlayStation, or this or that, and, blah, blah, blah. Console wars, as they call it. PC master race, that kind of thing. I mean, they're both great games. They can both be great games that do things differently. And the things that they do differently are going to mean that some people like one over the other, and there's nothing wrong with either of those. Let people like what they like. Because direct comparison is hard. When one of them has three-dimensional movement, it's fundamentally a different game. Satisfactory, you can build a factory on top of another factory, and you're the one walking in first-person mode between one section of factory to the next. It feels so different than Factorio, where even though you are an engineer walking, it feels a bit more like that RTS style, where you're kind of just moving the camera. In a lot of Factorio, it often feels like the engineer is mostly just what the camera follows. Whereas in Satisfactory, the movement itself is a big part of the game, and you unlock new things, that allow you to move more easily, like jetpacks eventually, or floaty jetpacks, or zip lines, or all sorts of cool stuff. And anyway, all that to say, Satisfactory is in many ways a 3D Factorio. One big difference is the handcrafted world rather than procedurally generated, which I love. And it makes exploring way more satisfying. In Factorio, exploring is kind of mid at best because you're just going to find more ore and more biters and more forests and more cliffs and more water, right? There's not anything out there to go find. And in Satisfactory, that's not really the case. There are little secrets to find. They have these things called power slugs. Are they called power slugs? They're some sort of slugs. They're glowing slugs that you process to make power shards, which make your things go faster. So there's reasons to explore in Satisfactory. And it feels really cool to explore because you're exploring something that a human made. And there's some character behind it. It's not just procedurally generated, whatever. I love that. Anyway, all that to say, the 1.0 release of Satisfactory is coming out later this year, which is really exciting. We have what I would argue are the two best factory games in the genre, which is Satisfactory and Factorio, both coming out with massive releases, probably pretty close to each other. So I'm loving this. I'm also scared that they're going to come out too close to each other, and I'm going to have to pick which one I want to play. And I'm really hoping that's not the case, because obviously, I mean, if you know me, Factorio is near and dear to my heart. So I will be doing Factorio the moment that it comes out, regardless of when that is. But Satisfactory is very exciting to me as well. And anyway, on to the video that Coffee Stain released. It's kind of sad to have a video titled "What Isn't Showing Up," in 1.0. But one thing they mention is the big crab enemy boss thing that they have in the original teaser. They mentioned that's not coming. Honestly, that's not a big deal. They just kind of talk about, we've realized that combat isn't the biggest deal in this game. It's fun, it's cool, but it's not the game. It's not the game that people come here for. And so the big crab isn't the most important thing for us to finish before 1.0. It is cool. I hope they get to it eventually, and I hope they do flesh out combat a little bit. One of the things Snut, who's the community manager right now, one of the things he mentions in the video is that they kind of feel like if they were going to add that, they would basically want to do a revamp of combat in general to make the whole system more interesting. So it kind of seems like they might have a rework of the combat system somewhere down the line. But he didn't say too much about it, so I'm not really sure. The next thing he talked about was official mod support. This one's weird because they've always loved the modding community, and they've always talked about official mod support for Satisfactory. And to be honest, and I don't know if I love this or not, he basically said the community has already done such a good job with modding. He didn't say it exactly this way, but reading between the lines, for me, it felt like he was saying the community has already done such a good job, we don't really feel like we need to do this yet. Because there's already such great mod support from the community, we don't really need to add it to the game because we have other fish to fry. That's what it felt like he was saying, kind of. If you read between the lines, you can watch the video and tell me. I'll put a link in the description to the video, by the way, but you can watch it yourself and tell me if you think that's not really what he was getting at. But it felt to me that's kind of what he was saying. And the whole video, he said many times, essentially, we have to focus on the most important things, right? We have to focus on getting the core experience of the game to be perfect for 1.0. And that's the most important thing for them to work on. And from a baseline perspective, that's kind of obvious, right? If you're on a time crunch to the finish line, you got to do the most important stuff. You don't have time for everything. So official mod support is one that they've kind of decided, you know what? Things are already pretty good for the modding community. And so we're going to put that on the list of things we don't quite need to do yet. I am a little bummed by that. Not how to say this. I think I'm only bummed because it means less players will mod the game. Official mod support is really important for a lot of players to mod games, even if the modding solution that the community has come up with is perfect. It's still unofficial. And having a game that has a button on the main menu called mods, and you click on it, and you can go find and download mods from that menu, makes every player in the game interested from a default perspective in the modding community. Even if they don't want to play with mods, they'll probably still click on it at some point and see what's there, right? Whereas if you don't have that, for a player to mod the game, they have to, first of all, know that the modding community even exists, which may not be there. And they have to then go to some website, which they might not know if it's sketchy or not. And there's just so many steps. So I would almost prefer, if they're not going to do official mod support, I would prefer if they did unofficial support, or sorry, let me rephrase that. I would prefer them to officially support the unofficial modding community. As in, there is a button in the game on the main menu that takes you to this community website. I think that would be a better way to fulfill their promise, because they did promise. I mean, I don't. Maybe promise is the wrong word, but they did say they were going to put mod support in the full release of the game. They have said that multiple times. Snut even mentions in the video, if you had asked them 3 or 4 months ago if mod support would be in the final game, they would have said, oh, of course. So this is a recent decision that they made to cut that from the 1.0 release. And I kind of hope that they, I don't know, do something to make up for it by somehow officially plugging the modding community. I think modding of Satisfactory is going to be really big, just like it is for Factorio and many other games in the genre. So I hope that there's either very fast mod support for the game or kind of some officially mentioned support for the unofficial modding community. So we'll see about that. The next thing he mentions is circular foundations not being in the game. This is very much a aesthetic thing. I'm fine with that. I think it would be cool to have circular foundations, but that's obviously not a super high priority. He also mentions, again, there's ways to do it already, so it's just not the biggest deal for them. I think some players will be disappointed by that because the ways that you have to do it currently are a little bit hacky and janky, but, you know, again, they're doing the more important stuff. Like whether or not you can perfectly build a circular foundation is not what makes or breaks the Satisfactory experience. I think we can all agree on that. Although there might be a couple players that disagree, but most will agree that that's not the thing that matters the most. Another thing they cut is roads. I don't really remember too much about them talking about roads. It was going to be some sort of spline system where you could, you know, click one place and click another place and it would build like a smooth curve, you know, even 3-dimensionally, like up and around kind of road that you could drive your trucks and tractors on and stuff. But I think they just realized this system is going to need a lot more work to get it where they want to be. And so they just can't add it yet. I'm fine with that. I do think it'll be really nice to have roads because, well, I guess they fixed the truck system. The trucks used to be super janky and they would get stuck and other bad things could happen. Now they kind of have it semi on rails. So if something goes wrong, it'll just fix itself magically, which is not the most perfect solution, but it means that your factory is going to run properly if you have trucks supplying some of your resources. Whereas before things could actually break. I'm glad that they changed that. So that, to me, that means roads feel a little bit less necessary because before roads would have been a solution to trucks being janky because you could have built a road and then they're never going to get stuck. Now roads are just going to be more of a aesthetic, cool thing that you can build to make things feel good and look good. And I'm sure that they will add that down the road and it'll be great. He mentions logic systems. This one was interesting. I wasn't even entirely certain what he meant. I don't know if he meant more some form of circuits, like Factorio has circuits, or if he meant something more like logistics system, like requesting and providing, like Factorio has, you know, logistics bots. I'm not really sure if he meant one or the other or both. Because right now, as far as I'm aware, the only things Satisfactory really has is the Smart Splitter. And the Smart Splitter allows you to prioritize 1 to 3 outputs. And yes, what's the word? It allows you to filter the 1 to 3 outputs that it has, which is super nice. But I don't think we're going to be getting any more than that for the 1.0 release. People in the Discord are saying they think it means the the like conditional automation or circuit network type stuff, like, oh, only run this constructor if we need iron plates, that sort of thing. Yeah, I think that's probably what was meant by logic systems. And again, he explained, honestly, is this even worth it? Because we don't want to design. I thought this was a really good point that he made, by the way. He said, we don't want to design the game in such a way where these logic systems are necessary, because then that makes kind of the barrier to entry to the game a bit higher, right? If you have to deal with logic systems, the game's already complicated enough, let's be honest. Most of you who are listening to this podcast are probably power users already. If you're interested enough to listen to a podcast about this genre, you probably are a power user, and you're above the bell curve of the average satisfactory player in terms of how much you understand and know about automation and circuit conditions and stuff like that. So a lot of players would find a required logic system to be a bit too much. And I like that he made this point. So essentially he was saying we want it to be optional, not necessary. And if it's optional anyway, then is it the most important thing to add for the 1.0 release? And I think that's just a really simple way to put it. It'll be great when and if we can add it, but it's not necessary for the 1.0 release. He mentioned a couple other minor things like removing beacons entirely, which they had already talked about. The beacon feature is essentially now just a part of the map view already. You can just add pinpoints or pins to the map. They're removing color cartridges and flowers, which were resources you needed to paint your factory. I think that's a good idea. Cosmetic stuff should always be a really low barrier to entry, I think, in games. If you want to do a ton of cosmetic stuff, it's just annoying to have to do all of it. And if you don't care about cosmetic stuff, it's just random stuff that you don't care about. So I've never really felt like games where cosmetics are part of what you have to unlock or produce. I've never felt like that's a great idea. I think cosmetics should usually be free, quote unquote, or at least free once you've gotten to a certain place in the tech tree or whatever. I don't know. That's just an opinion, though. I'm sure people disagree with me and say, oh, no, it's a fun challenge. I loved having to collect flowers to make my color cartridges. I personally don't think it's great. So anyway, one other thing was the recipe rebalances. He mentioned they're doing a full pass of the entire tech tree of recipes and kind of making sure all of the recipes that are in the game are balanced well against each other. He said it'll mostly affect the later parts of the tech tree, but he didn't outright say nothing in the early game will change. It sounded like very little would change in the early game, if anything changes, but they just want to make sure that nothing's like way too overpowered or way too underpowered. I'm guessing they're going to look through all the alternative recipes. That's where the biggest balancing challenges come in, and we'll probably see quite a few changes. He said we didn't want to do this a bunch of times throughout the early access updates, and we didn't want to iterate over and over and over again because every change breaks somebody's factory. So I think their goal is to break everybody's factory at the same time just once on the 1.0 release. So that's going to be cool. And I assume it'll just make the final result a bit better of a balanced game. And that was pretty much it. Those were the only things they said weren't coming in 1.0 that they had previously, I think, mentioned would be coming. And I think overall, that's a pretty good list. None of those things feel massively important. I think official mod support is the biggest one. That makes me sad and probably feels like the biggest feature. The other ones were minor features of the game. Official mod support feels a bit like a major feature of the game that's not quite making it. I'm hoping that they rush that pretty quick after 1.0 so it doesn't feel like, you know, just a complete dropped promise type thing where we're still 6 months out after release and there's still no official mod support. I'm hoping it's not quite like that, but we'll see. And there was one other thing in the video, and if you don't want any spoilers at all, then skip ahead about a minute. But one thing they teased was a short little 10-second video at the end of the YouTube video, and it was showing a constructor making biomass pellets, or I forget exactly what they're called, biofuel maybe, but the kind of like barrel looking shape, the cylinders of biomass, and it showed them being fed on a conveyor into a biomass burner. That's right, there's a conveyor input for the biomass burners now, And I'm not sure if it's going to be a separate or entity that has the conveyor input or probably just the same one. But now you can semi-automate, as long as you're feeding the constructors with the wood and stuff, you can semi-automate power. So that's pretty cool. You don't have to manually feed the biomass burners anymore. I think some people are going to not like that change. I personally like the change. It was an annoyance of the early game that I don't think quite paid off. The juice wasn't quite worth the squeeze, so to speak. I just think it was more annoying than it was fun. Some people are going to be on the other side of that coin, and that's fine. But anyway, that was the Satisfactory video that came out this week. Pretty cool news. So excited for 1.0. I think one of the reasons I'm so excited is that I haven't played the game in forever. I mean, the last time I played the game was I actually streamed it. I don't know, it was probably a couple years ago now. It was for I don't remember if it was the nuclear update or the drone update, or maybe that was the same update. But it was whenever they added nuclear power was the last time I really played through the game. And I've really been itching to play it again, and I haven't quite felt like it's time. And then they but they released the news that 1.0 is going to come out. So I said to myself, well, now I just have to wait for 1.0. And here we are. So I'm really itching to play, but I'm waiting for 1.0. So the anticipation is continuing to build. So what's next? We are going to talk through some viewer questions, and then I think we'll wrap up the podcast. Man, episode 2 going so fast. Having fun. Dave Kvist asks, which key features need to be in every good automation game? For example, good transparency of important numbers like recipe costs, crafting times, speeds, etc. A good example of this is how when you have a building in Satisfactory, it tells you how many per second it's producing. So when you have your iron plate factory, I guess it's per minute. Everything's measured per minute in Satisfactory, but it'll say 30 iron plates per minute. And if you put a power slug or a power cylinder, what are they called? Power shard into the building and speed up the building, it'll change that number. It'll do the math for you. It'll tell you, ooh, now I'm outputting 45 iron plates a minute or whatever. One thing that's interesting is that Factorio doesn't tell you this. All Factorio does is it tells you the crafting time for the recipe, which might be, let's say, 5 seconds. It tells you the crafting speed of the building in a separate place. You have to mouse over the building to see the building's crafting speed, and you have to actually mouse over the recipe somewhere to see the recipe speed. And then there's also how many items are output in the recipe. So let's say you're making 2 iron gears in a 5-second recipe in a building that has a speed of 3. How the heck many iron gears per second are you making? And it's actually not trivial to do that. I mean, obviously it's just a math formula with 3 numbers, but that's 3 numbers you have to math in your head, which not everyone is great at. I know I make lots of mistakes with that, and not everyone has a calculator sitting on their desk. So it is interesting that Factorio hasn't included any sort of rate calculations in their base game. I'm wondering if they're going to add something like that into Space Age, because there's so many more products and the production lines are going to get longer in Factorio. I'm wondering if they're going to add showing the per second kind of output or input or both of buildings. As far as, what key features need to be in a good automation game, that's such a deep question. We could have an entire podcast about that. But I think my short answer is the progression from one kind of tier of technology to the next needs to feel rewarding. If I'm going to make copper plates and then turn those into copper wire or whatever, I'm just saying for any game here, and then I have to add rubber to that to make cables, can I do anything cool with those cables? If I'm just making items to make more items to make more items, that can feel really empty. And you need to give the player some progression that feels like they're getting somewhere. Often that's in the form of giving the player upgrades, whether it's they can move faster or build further, or they have some sort of new feature in the game that they've unlocked, like fluid management and pipes. Like Satisfactory starts you off with no fluids, and then they ease you into it. Same thing with Factorio. You don't really have to deal with fluids except for water. And even that's super simple at first. And then you get oil unlocked and the whole world becomes different because now you have pipes to build. And that feels like a cool thing to unlock. A lot of players mention that that's actually where they get stuck in the game because the challenge is so big. So I think it's interesting that good automation games have these senses of you make things to make more things, but then you usually have some form of research that you need to do with that. And then you unlock more things to do. And you kind of do this back and forth. Excuse me. We'll have to cut that one out in post. Sometimes you just breathe in your own spit, and that happens. Oh my gosh, that was so weird. Oh, goodness. Okay. Where was I? I don't even remember what I was saying now. Anyway, you have these back and forths with technology, but at some point you need to get into a new phase of the game. And for Factorio, fluids is a good example of that. Needing to use trains or large amounts of belts is a good example of that. Satisfactory giving you something like nuclear which has some byproducts is a good example of that. There's a lot of other examples in other games, but just having byproducts is one thing. Having, new, like in Space Age mod for Factorio, going to space is a great example of that. Like that's the thing you're sort of progressing towards. And once you start doing that, it almost feels like the game's different, but it's still the same. And it gives you reasons to do things. I think that's one of the most important things. I'm sure there's more. Like I said, we could spend a whole podcast talking about this. So I'll move on to the next question for now. Salsa, a bit of a less serious question. What is your favorite pizza topping / go-to mixed drink? Well, that's two questions for the price of one, I guess. Favorite pizza topping is difficult. I tend to be a meat lovers kind of guy, but it does depend on the style of pizza. One of my friends in real life has a Detroit style deep dish recipe for barbecue chicken pizza, and I was always a barbecue chicken hater. I was not a fan. It was not, I was like, well, who would ever want barbecue sauce and chicken on a pizza? That just sounds wrong. However, his barbecue chicken deep dish Detroit style pizza made me want to never eat anything else again. It was so good. So in that particular case, that's my favorite topping. I wouldn't say I would get that flavor combo anywhere though. Like I wouldn't get a barbecue chicken from, Pizza Hut or whatever. But his homemade recipe, that I'd say that's my favorite pizza. And if I'm just getting any random old pizza, Meat Lovers is probably my go-to, or just, pepperoni, sausage, whatever. Go-to mixed drink, that's an interesting one. I think my favorite in the summertime when it's warm is called a Vomat, and it is a mixture of lemon juice, simple syrup, Saint Germain's, which is an elderflower liqueur, and gin, and it is delicious. Highly recommend. On a similar note to that question, Nagon asks, what brews are best for building the factory? And I'm going to be honest here. I don't love to drink before or during Factorio. I think it makes me a little bit more lethargic, and it makes my brain not want to do the hard things. And Factorio feels too hard. And so usually, if I'm having a beer or whatever, that's more when I want to watch a show or something, or play a really chill and relaxing game. So I tend to find the brews that are best for building the factory are the non-alcoholic ones, like a sparkling water or whatever, or just good old fashioned water. But that, your mileage may vary. Some people may find they factory best after a couple suds. So, that's up to everybody. Let's see. I think we have time for one more question. Glim says, what is a good mix of static upgrades? For example, upgrading belts from 15 per second to 30 per second versus incorporating new concepts as tech progresses. Are there generalities to be drawn, or is it purely subjective tastes? So what he's getting at here is a little bit of what we were just talking about with unlocking oil production in Factorio, where you've gotten further in the game and you're not just getting faster factories, and you're not just getting faster belts or faster bots or faster movement speed. you're actually getting a whole new mechanic, fluids. And that completely changes how you need to approach the game. Now you need to have cargo wagons or fluid wagons on your train tracks, and you need to have pipes going everywhere, and you have to deal with pipe spaghetti. If you're not using the squeak through mod, you have to build your pipes in a way that they don't get in the way of you walking. You have to consider, how can I still move around my factory with all these pipes in the way? There's a lot of things that you have to deal with, and it's not just some sort of upgrade that is kind of a no-brainer. Right? Once you get red belts in Factorio, which are the 30 per second belts, you really just switch to them. Assuming you have enough iron to produce them, there's no benefit to build a yellow belt, except in really weird cases where you want to limit throughput, but that's pretty rare. So I would say that a good factory game, and I think this does dovetail into the previous question that Dave had asked, is you want to have a back and forth. If you have too many new mechanics being thrown onto the player constantly, it feels overwhelming. And they feel like, oh God, I don't even know what to do next because there's 50 different things I could do, and they all feel like different mechanics. But if you never have a new mechanic, if you just had more and more things to automate, and you never really unlocked anything different, the game would get really boring really fast. Right. And so there's this back and forth, and some of them are more minor. For example, unlocking a chemical production plant, but maybe it still uses solid ingredients. Well, it's a new building, but it still uses belts and inserters, to go back and forth. And so there's this combination of like, how much are you adding to the, almost like the player needs to learn how to do something new, and how much are you adding to, okay, now the player can do something old but better. And then how much are you doing neither? Some technologies just unlock new recipes, and they don't give you any benefit other than now you can make new things in the factories you already have. And I think, honestly, all of those in some combination is the best. As far as what exact ratio of each is best, I do think that's a bit subjective. And you can see that in the different mods that Factorio has. For example, Pyanodons has lots of all of those. I mean, the ratio, I don't even know exactly what the ratio is, but it has 1 million new recipes that just add new things to buildings you already have. It has 1 million new buildings and new processes. And then it also has quite a few new mechanics that it introduces as you play further that you need to deal with. And I think all of those combined, it's massive in terms of how much the player has to keep track of, which is really cool. And then you look at Vanilla Factorio, and really fluids and potentially the rail network, but the rail network's not even required. And so fluids, and logistics bots. Sorry, I forgot about bots. Fluids and bots are the main two that Factorio adds, with rails being a third place because it's optional. I would say bots are also optional, but far more players. I think bots are way easier because they help you, whereas trains sometimes feel like they hinder you. And so I think way more players, when they're starting out, feel like, okay, I got fluids, I have to deal with it. Oh, thank goodness I got logistics bots. Now they can carry things around for me, and I get to do that. And those are also two very different types of progress. I have to deal with that, or I get to do that. Right? One of them is like, ooh, I get logistics bots. How fun. Now my butler bots, I can say that properly now. Now my butler bots carry that around properly for me, and they get to move things around, and I don't have to. Whereas, when you unlock the fluid stuff, you're like, okay, I have to deal with heavy oil and light oil and petroleum. And for some players, that's a downside. For some players, it's fun. For some players, it's a little bit of I have to deal with it, but then it's rewarding once they do. And that's the cool design space in all of these factory games, is you can turn your game into some, back and forth of, okay, I'm going to make them face a challenge, but it's not going to be so hard that they can't handle it. And then once they handle it, it'll feel good because they're rewarded with something that, they get to do. And I think that's a good pace, is you want to put something like logistics bots, which are very rewarding, behind a challenge like oil, because it's very challenging, especially if you've never done it before. And I think that's a really good way to balance things so that players are motivated to push through some of those difficult moments because of what the light they see on the other side. And in general, in game design, that's what you want to do, right? If you're gonna challenge the player, you need to reward the player. A challenge with no reward is not really that great. Yes, you can argue every challenge is its own reward, but I mean, at that point, okay, why aren't you just running 10 miles? That's a reward too, right? Like there are reasons we don't do hard things. It's because they're hard. And so if you're putting hard things in your game, you want to add some bonuses that the player receives to make them feel good for completing that. Yeah, Alor mentions in the Discord, beacons is another good example of this. That, you know, it's hard to get to beacons, but once you have, there's this massive reward of being able to make all your buildings go faster, and you can put productivity modules in them, and then they go faster and produce more, and it feels really good to get to beacons. By the way, we're going to have to talk about beacons in a future episode because I find that topic very interesting, and it's a hot topic in the Factorio Reddit and Discord these days on whether the vanilla Factorio beacon design is better, which is where you can surround a building with beacons, or the space exploration, which is the mod version of beacons is better, which is where you can only have one beacon affecting buildings at a certain time, and they have a large area of effect. Which one's better, and why? And I think that's a really interesting topic. We're gonna have to get into that in a future episode. But for now, I think we will wrap up episode 2 of The Factory Must Grow. I do want to give a shout out to all my patrons. I don't yet have a separate Patreon for the podcast versus the YouTube and Twitch channel. But if you would like to support the podcast financially in any way, the best way to do that for now is going to patreon.com/Krydax. You do get some perks like a special name color in the Discord and some shout outs from time to time on the channel. But, it's mostly just a voluntary thing. There's no super, content locked behind Patreon or anything because I don't want to put any paywalls on any of my content as of now, and there are none. If you have any questions, ideas for topics, or ideas for guests we could have on the channel, please head over to the Discord and recommend that there. There's a link in the show notes below, and let me know about that. And yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. We will see you next week, and always remember, the factory must grow. All right. Episode 2. Oh yeah, thanks for doing that, Alor. The followers only mode. Let's see. There. All right, let's see. What were some other questions I didn't get to that Twitch chat had that I can discuss quickly? If anyone still has burning questions they want to ask. The fluctuating volume was again there. Dave, so I listened to the whole podcast and I wasn't hearing it. So if you wouldn't mind going to, and this is some extra work for you, so don't feel like you have to, but if you want to look at the VOD at some point and give me some specific timestamps, at least 2 or 3 examples where you hear it, that would be really helpful. I'm assuming that it has something to do with, I actually don't know what it is. It's probably the noise filtering. Yeah, it's probably the noise reduction on my microphone that's contributing to that, but I'm curious if that's the problem or not. So I need to kind of know what's happening before I can know what I need to be listening for to change settings to know when it fixes itself. So if you could find some examples of the volume thing happening, that would be really helpful. And then I can maybe diagnose it a little bit better. Because yeah, when I was just listening to it, I didn't notice it. However, I also probably don't notice a lot of things. So I'm not saying that you're wrong. It wasn't so bad that I was like, oh my God, the volume's all over the place. I also applied a I applied a volume normalizer. So maybe that's why I didn't hear it. Although I think that was only for I can't remember when I added that. Anyway, yeah, examples would be great. All right, I'm gonna switch this back. Oh gosh, now I'm gone. Okay, there we are. seems darker. Does that seem darker to you guys? It seems way darker. Well, part of it is the screen is black, but you know. You posted a question in Discord. Yeah, I did see that. We were already running out of time. Which release, Factorio 2.0 or Satisfactory 1.0, feels more complex and bigger? Yeah, we should probably talk about that next week. I think that's a good question. I would say the Factorio 2.0 release feels bigger. In terms of content transformation of like what the game is to what it's going to be. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I just have to do the auto exposure thing on my camera, and then it's better. Now it almost feels too bright. Is that too bright, or is that about right? It feels too red. This is like a black sweater. Why does it look red? Oh, goodness. These video settings are going to be the death of me, I swear. I swears. Yeah, part of it is they've had a lot of time to cook on this. Oops, that's not what we wanted. You know, Factorio's been working on this expansion since they released, which was a very long time ago by now. Marked at home. I don't even... The amount of frustration that this gives me is endless, because Discord has its own settings on the camera, and then the camera settings has its own settings, and they seem to fight, and sometimes one takes over and sometimes the other one takes over, and even if I set one to its defaults, it doesn't seem to matter. Like, I can't seem to get it to always do the same thing no matter how I set it up, and it makes me want to scream. Anyway, the Satisfactory release, I think, is going to have some surprises, such as SAM ore usages and, you know, milestones 9 and 10 and stuff. And those are major, but they're like a normal major update rather than, oh my god, it's a whole new game major update, which is what Factorio is doing. I think I've said this already. I think I might have said it on podcast 1. But Factorio 2.0, I think, is bigger. I don't know how to phrase this properly. It's more bigger, which is perfect English, than Factorio 1 is bigger than nothing. Like, there's more content that's added in 2.0 than the content that completely exists in 1.0. Don't worry, I'm fixing the green screen. And so I would, like, it's impossible to argue that Satisfactory is a bigger update, because it's not. It, like you said, yeah, exactly. Satisfactory 1.0 is like, it's adding in the rest of the game. It will be a very large update, and it will change a lot, and it'll be great, and I'm not saying anything negative about it, but it's also not an entirely new game. Space Age feels like an entirely new game, to the point where, like, yes, it's still Factorio, but in many ways it's like, this isn't even like Factorio anymore. It's like a whole new thing, a whole new world, as you could say, a new fantastic point of view. So yeah, I think that is a big deal. As far as my excitement levels, I mean, obviously I'm more excited for Factorio, but I don't even know if I would compare them. I'm really excited for Satisfactory 1.0. I love Satisfactory. It doesn't get me addicted quite as much as oh, I'm going the wrong direction. As Factorio, but it is like a really great game, and I'm super excited for 1.0. Okay, I'm gonna take a short little break, and then we're gonna hop back into Pyanodons here. So let me change the stream game. So it shows me as playing Factorio. change the title. Where is the title? Factorio pyanodons. What are we doing? Are we at rails yet, Dad? Yeah, Blue Squid, I kind of agree with that. Like, Factorio 2.0 is... I know it's not Factorio 2, but it does feel like Factorio 2 to me. Because... it kind of... okay, maybe a good way to put it, and I'll take my break here in a second, but this is just such an interesting topic. Maybe a good way to put it is it feels like the old games that would have sequels. Like, way back in the day. Like, let's look at, like, Doom 1 and 2, for example. Or Descent. I don't know if anyone played Descent, where you, like, had the spaceship in the mines and you would, you know... it was great. Anyway, those games, the sequels felt very similar. Like, it was clearly the same game. Like, Doom 2 is almost Doom 1. There are some key things that they added, but it's like, it's not really that different, right? It's like, it's still Doom, you know, and it just happens to have a new campaign, a few new weapons, some new types of enemies, and it's Doom 2. And that's kind of what Factorio feels like. It's far more than just a DLC. It's not just new maps. It's like, oh, this is like a whole new game. It's Factorio 2. You know, it does still have Factorio 1 inside of it, but it's like, it is a whole new campaign. It is a whole new... I'd say it's actually more different than Doom 2 was than Doom 1. And Doom 2 was a whole new game. And Factorio 2.0 is technically just an update. Or a DLC expansion. It is paid, so I think update's the wrong word. But I would say, in terms of DLC, it feels like 3 DLCs at the same time. Maybe that's the best way to put it. Like, how other games do DLCs, this is easily a full season pass of DLCs. It's like, we've not just done one DLC and then another and then another. It's like we did all of them in one giant update. It is so much content that they're changing and adding. Anyway. Okay. Get the volume for the music set. Quick break, where are you? There you are. Maybe someday I'll change that graphic. It's still pretty anemic. I also need to delete some videos. Hard disk is filling up. And by hard disk, I do not mean an actual hard drive, don't worry. That podcasts rename podcast 2. Of course, tape remains the best long-term storage. Yes, exactly. All right. I will be back in, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes. So you guys stretch your legs, grab a snack, get some water, and we will pyanodons. All right. We're back. Hey, you're welcome. Abathion? Abathion. Good background for your K2SE run. Yeah, I struggle to also think of any other games that have the scope of Space Age 2.0, where the expansion adds more than the original game had in total. Because I don't count the live, what do they call them? GAS, games as a service. I don't count GAS games that have things like World of Warcraft or whatever that have like 50 million updates over the years. You know, that doesn't really count. I'm thinking of like one update that's not a separate game. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, here we go. Oh, did I update Hellmod? Hold on. Let me make sure I updated Hellmod. There was an update. Looks like I did. Yeah, 1.07. Ooh, Yuri's Revenge was so good. But even then, it's like same game, but new campaign, one new faction. That was pretty standard for RTSs, for an expansion to add a faction. So, what is this? DSFP? I don't know what that means. DSFP. I have no idea. Hello everyone, Krydax here, and welcome back to some delicious pyanodons. We have gotten an update for good old Hellmod, and we're gonna see if it actually fixes anything or not. I'm entirely uncertain. It looks like no. Or maybe, wait, maybe. Okay. So linking that, let's just try making a new one. Let's try making a new one. Just so we're being fair to Hellmod here. So we want this one to be input based, linked. Oh, wait, no, that wouldn't work. This was not the example of input based. This was just an example of it not linking correctly, I think. So let's just throw these in here. And then move this row, control click. And then is it linking properly if I increase the output of, what were we setting? Ionic? Oh, the batteries. Well, are batteries linking correctly? Interesting. Here we have 32 cyanic acid. This should be catching it, but it's not. These are all set to 100. And if I type 30 into that, it breaks the whole... What is going on? If I type 30 here, why did that set everything else to 0? There's definitely some screwy stuff going on with Hellmod. But yeah, I might need to recreate the cyanic block. So let's just try that. And see if it works. We'll at least try it working properly. So then we make a block with that. And then I hit link and it turns to 0. So yeah, there's definitely something wrong. Because this needs to be linked to these inputs. So, I mean, it's already broken, right? I'm not missing something here. Because we can set that to 30. And then it incorrectly displays here. So that's important to note. Right? This shouldn't be 32. I set it to be 30 inside of this block, and it's showing as 32, and it's not linked, so it shouldn't be linking to these. And then, if I hit link, it goes to 0, when it should go to 32. So there's a double issue there, as far as I can tell, where it's not working properly. The one that I was specifically asked to investigate, though, is the input linking, which was the chromium stone I think we were dealing with. So let's take a look into that. So we wanted to, like, use the stone, I think, to make sand was what I was originally thinking. So if I do stone ingredient, and it's crushing stone, this one. And then we wanted to make that its own block. And then I wanted to ingredient input link. And it still doesn't work. And if I move it down, it doesn't work. Below it. And if I move it up above the stone product, it still doesn't work. Okay, well, I will timestamp this part of the video and send it back to the the bug report GitHub, and I'm sure it'll get fixed eventually. Anyway, what were we doing? We got some serious accomplishments in the last episode. I do need a significant amount more moss now for the AUG supply. 1.6, and this was a fifth of this, which is about 0.1 plus 0.1, so that's like 0.2. So we'll just call it 2.0. I need 2 moss a second. And 2 moss a second is pretty much another 10 moss farms. Where do I put those? Probably down there, but that means I need stone down there. Sludge and carbon dioxide are easy to move around, but we do need to get stone. Stone going down here. It's also not an insignificant amount of stone. I am a bit worried about overall stone output. Maybe I should use another caravan. Oh, but then I have Carrigan. Ugh. I could add a second belt here, so that we're not taking from the throughput of that belt. It's a little tight to fit it in. Where all is this stone going? Going past all the moss, and then going to make alginate or whatever. Does one of these need stone? Yeah, sodium alginate needs stone. I think that's where it stops. Okay, so that's a very tiny amount of stone. Alright, in that case, let's bring the stone. What is this belt? It's empty. Empty belts scare me. Very long empty belt. With nothing. Oh, this was an ash belt. Let's see. If you use recipe book mod instead of FNEI, you can alt click about anywhere and bring up the rep. What? So it. I'm alt clicking. It's not doing anything. I have recipe book installed. Oops. Oh, and that's weird. You can't undo changing a recipe. Seem to not be doing it right, because it's not working. You did say alt-click, right? You did say alt-click. Maybe the hotkeys different? Recipe book. Open selected object in recipe book not set. Oh, there we go. Well, that's new. I don't like that it's attached. That actually really bothers me. I want it to pop up over, not way over here. But that is cool. Not gonna lie. That might be the thing that makes me want to use it more. That's pretty cool. Okay, and what is this belt? Is this another ash belt? What the heck is this? Nope, that's cages. No, caged. Uh-oh. What do we have going on here? Caged Vrauks. Let me just make sure Vrauk production is still proper. It's probably moss issues, I'm guessing. No, cocoon issues. Oh, because I'm stealing cocoons to make cDNA. That's right, that's right. Okay. I need some more Vrauk bonking. Alright, well anyway, let's keep going with this belt. Because it perfectly aligns with the stone belt here. And then that can be... Now, how am I running out of stone? I've got two duders going here. Oh, it's not enough. Oh, goodness. We don't even... Oh, we do have a full belt. It's just not a full belt of stone. That's right. That's right. Okay. We'll go upgrade that in a second. But this belt, not an ash belt, it's a stone belt. So it needs to go over and down. And then we'll do input priority left. And then the other stone will go to moss and stuff. Cool, cool, cool. You can even alt-click on an entity. Oh, but E doesn't close it. That's also kind of weird. You have to... Oh, is there not a hotkey to close it? Ugh. Yeah, recipe... I've noticed Rygard's GUI stuff. I know he's a GUI king, but it doesn't always do what I think it's gonna do in terms of opening and closing. Confuses me sometimes. Wascally, it took us more than an hour to even get electric miners unlocked. Or, I can't remember if they start unlocked, but you definitely can't build them at the start. Alright, so we're gonna need more. More! Uh-oh. Okay, good. We can craft. Now, what did I do here? Oh, I think I properly did this. Because stone is half as stacked as Keragen, so they fill up at the same rate that way. Yeah. Okay. It's crazy that you... It's so... Oh my gosh. You get 2 per second of each from 1 miner, so that's already 24 items a second just from 6 miners. So I probably should space these out because there's really, like, I'm not gonna be able to use the per second output, so this way I just don't need as many miners. for the patch. Feels like there's no reason to have them not spaced out. Okay. There we go. Those are covering that whole side. Yeah, Verk, I probably will mention something. I believe, though, I already mentioned something with rate calculator, potentially about E not closing it. I can't remember. I'm guessing if I leave it pinned, E will close it. Oh, if you click a hotbar item, it grabs it from the hotbar and it opens the thing. That's different. Huh. Well, now there are no belts. Wait, oh, you're right. Look, who needs belts? Chromium reserve. Was that 11 million? I can't even... That was a lot of digits of chromium. Look, these guys really need belts. And we're gonna need a bunch of moss farms, so we need a bunch of soil, kind of all the regular stuff. Oh, and some stone brick. We have good amounts of stone brick already, though. So we're okay on brains, but we're not okay on meat. Actually, maybe we are. Next let is backed up. That's a good sign. That is a good sign. Is there an ash belt nearby I can dump this on? This ash? Doesn't look to be ash. There's a... I can just put this ash... Ooh, this is really, like, rickety. Why am I... This should go into, like, a chest. Make sure we don't have not enough coal. Surprised that that never broke. Anyway, we need a whitelist, ash. Just go over there. Alright, soil, we did put together, yeah, soil factory up here. $20. Did I grab enough? I don't know if I grabbed enough. Some more iron. Do I have any theories on Sam ore? I want to say... Minor spoilers ahead, though they could be wrong, but mute me now if you don't want to hear what might be a minor spoiler, or major spoiler. I don't know how major it would be, but I think it's teleportation. I want to say someone saw something data mined about that at some point, but that could be outdated, so I don't even know if that's for sure. Why can I not? Is it aluminum? It's aluminum. Yeah, we do have hypertube launchers. That is true. There we go. All right, 20 moss farms. And then we're gonna need some more muddy sludge. Which a washer makes 25 a second from 2.5 soil, so it's really 20 a second from a pair of soil extractor and washers. They really do. I think it's more for like potentially teleportation of items than the player, but probably both. But honestly, that I remember seeing that somewhere on like a wiki, like back when the game came out, like before update 4. So there's a good chance whatever has happened has changed a lot in the meantime. All right, and then the output here, let's see if we can make it all in the middle. So we're gonna need stone in, moss out. It's 2 belts. We're gonna need to connect all of the fluids. Trains, planes, and automobiles. Do these work if I offset them? Sometimes it works out perfectly. It does. I love when that works out that way. Is this now my 4th moss production location? You know what? Listen here. Listen here. Is there a better way to do this? I could do... You know, it's kind of funny. I could do like some sort of zigzag with these, where like that one connects these 2, and then that one connects those 2, and no, that's horrible. We're not doing that, but I could. Oh yeah, Dave, you mentioned Tectonica kind of being disappointing during the podcast. I still haven't really played it. I think it'll get better at some point, but you said it doesn't tell you item rates, which does feel really weird. Do people play one over the other? One over the other what? What do we... I don't know what. One what? That's kind of annoying. Okay, so they might need to be one further apart. Because of 2 pipes and 2 belts. There we go. Okay, so acetylene's still connected. Wait, I missed... Oh, I missed the comment. Okay, aesthetics is the reason to play Satisfactory over Factorio, is what Waskley said. That is, for sure, personal opinion. Some people would say the exact opposite. Some people hate the look of Satisfactory. Now, I don't hate the look of Satisfactory, but some people do. I think it is definitely pretty clear that one of them is more, like, graphically... I don't know what you even call it. Higher graphics fidelity or something. Like, clearly Satisfactory is like a 3D game with much higher quality textures and stuff. Maybe not higher quality, but like, it's hard to explain what I'm trying to phrase. I think you all know what I mean though. But yeah, they're completely different games, and some people don't like the look, you know, the semi-cartoon but not cartoon look of Satisfactory. But yeah, there's a lot of different reasons to play both games, and there is a large overlap. Okay, so we want to hit both buildings. So do I have to go every other? How do I do this? I have to do this? Will this work? Sorry, I need to think, not talk for a second. No, because then it doesn't hit these. Wait, no, it does. By doing every other, a building should be able to reach both. I think. Am I making this harder than necessary? Probably. That's my MO. Let's see. So in in. No, I only need one in. In, out. In, out. Okay, that's consistent and works. And then these two will be in, out. You can even put on the same time. I think that works. Yeah, to Ronan, I'm pretty similar. Aesthetics are not generally a priority for me. However, they do matter in ways that we don't even realize. So, like, there are games where the aesthetics are a big part of the experience for us, but we don't even know it. Not to say that everyone cares about aesthetics the same. They definitely don't. I'm on the low end of caring about aesthetics, but they do matter. A lot of people are off-put by aesthetics without even realizing it, and then they say something like, oh, I just couldn't get into that game. And it's like, well, it probably actually had something to do with the aesthetics. It's such a huge element of whether you even feel attracted towards a game or not. But I think I did this right, and if I paste this, we're gonna be fine. But only time will tell. Yeah, immersion isn't something you feel. As far as... Yeah, I was literally just talking about this on the podcast about it's funny how people try to make Factorio compete with Satisfactory. Like, they're completely different games. They have completely different feels. The 3D versus 2D is such a massive difference. You really can't compare the games. Some people like both. In fact, a lot of people like both. Some people don't like one or the other. There are lots of Satisfactory players, if you go to the Reddit, that could never get into Factorio. And vice versa. It's totally a thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, get all the CO2 hooked up here. I probably should have done this before the blueprinting. And then do the same thing, but for the muddy sludge. I kind of like this. This is not my standard way of building things, but it's kind of cool how it worked out. Get rid of those. And I think it's all hooked up. I need a bunch of moss. Interesting. You're claiming Satisfactory is clunkier than Tectonica. Yeah, I will definitely have to check out Tectonica at some point. Satisfactory's also made a huge amount of upgrades to the process of building stuff and making it easier. Why are these not auto... Did I not? Oh, the blueprint didn't... I need to paste it. Okay. Oh yeah, I think that's a bug. It shouldn't let me paste stuff from range, but it does. That's a remote configuration thing. Yeah, there's plenty of Satisfactory players that can't get into, or Factorio players who can't get into Satisfactory, because they are completely different games, and so that's why it makes sense. I love both. I think there's definitely a huge difference in both. It scratches different itches. Like, I love first-person shooters, right? And so the first-person shooter perspective, I actually really enjoy it. I find it enjoyable to traverse the game world. I think movement is really fun in Satisfactory. The upgrades to movement, designing your base for movement. I think those are all really fun parts of the game. Some people don't give a rip about first-person shooters, and they don't give a rip about movement in games. And so obviously, like, that element alone is going to make a big difference. in how the game is experienced. Okay, so wait, I forgot to add a second belt output to this. What we really need is... what do we need? Not actually sure. We need stone out. Did I get carriage in on the belt just now? I don't think so. No, we're good. And then this needs to merge with this one. I can do output priority right. And then this will supplement. Input priority left. So we'll focus on filling up that belt first, and then this belt. But we're always prioritizing the byproduct stone, which is stuff from up this direction. So we're prioritizing it there. And then this, any extra that we have will go over here, which is then prioritized as well. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, Alor. They're about as different as you can get while being in the same genre, but they're actually very similar games in the grand scheme. Because, yeah, because I'd say they're in the same subgenre, you know, and that's what makes them alike, right? They're not a shooter, they're not a RTS, they're not, you know, that's like, they are factory games, and that alone puts them in a very similar situation compared to most games out there. But they are very different factory games in the factory game subgenre. Which is why I started a podcast, is because there's so many different games in the genre now, and it's becoming an increasingly popular genre, and there's so many cool things to talk about. Right, I think we can just put the soil over here. We've got water right there. How many do I need again? I need 25 and 25, so that's actually just 2 soils and 1 washer, exactly. Yeah, and then Dyson Sphere program has been mentioned. It is kind of a little bit in between the two with its own unique pieces, of course. It's more 3D than Factorio, and it's less 3D than Satisfactory. And now it has combat, which is a new thing that people have said actually looks pretty good. So I'm kind of excited to try it out at some point. Where are we at? That one? That one. The rates. The rates are not fast enough. 2 inserters each should do it. 2.4 piece. Yeah. Alright, so then we need water over here too. Yeah, the poor English localization. Okay, so I had the same rant with Pal World. Like, they have sold tens or even, I don't even know, hundreds of thousands of copies. And they could pay someone to go through all the files and translate it properly. And it wouldn't even cost that much money. Like, if I could speak both languages fluently, I would accept $50 an hour, and it would probably take me less than 10 hours to properly structure all the grammar of every line in the game. Maybe it would take 20 hours. I don't know. But even then, it's like they can't spend $500 or $1,000 on having like a perfect translation. That just feels so weird to me. It's not that expensive to hire a translator. I've just yeah. And the same thing with Pal World. Now, Pal World's a little different because I think they were a billion times more successful than they anticipated. But at this point, I hope that they've hired proper translators for all of their community posts and stuff like that. It's like, it's not that much money to hire someone that fluently speaks both languages. And it just feels weird to have so much income from a game. And I mean, and look, I'm not saying they're head over heels in money. Like, they might even be losing money on something. I'm not saying that, but like in terms of what they're spending on paying devs, paying for art, paying other things, it's like the cost percentage, the amount of what it actually costs you compared to what you're spending on other things to do a proper translation is so small. What am I looking for? We need CO2. So CO2... Sorry everyone if you're here on YouTube to watch me play Pyanodons and I'm ranting about other things. I think I'm still a little bit in the podcast mode. Is carbon dioxide still easiest made from... Where do even are we making? Actually, I don't even know how we're making it right now. How am I making it? Where am I making it? Oh, it's up here. Okay, so it is just Coke. Simple. Simple and easy. And we get 16 per input. And this Coke is coming from the output of oil production, which is pretty consistent. Not perfectly consistent. But I think we can rely on it, but we should put an alarm on it. So we'll add more to that. So we'll throw in a couple more HPFs here. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying, Dave. Initial releases not having, you know, perfect translations feels reasonable and fine, especially for smaller studios. But after the huge amount of success, having really poor translations feels off. And it's pretty off-putting. Like, at least when I played Dyson Sphere Program, they were like pretty bad translations. Like not just like a little bit of bad English, but like, oh, I'm like struggling to understand what that sentence is supposed to be saying levels of bad English. So that, and I don't know if it's gotten any better since then, but like even with the community they have, they could literally just put up a community post saying, hey everybody, we'd love some help with translations. And within a day, they would have perfectly translated lines. So it's like, why haven't they done that? It just doesn't make sense to me. Because yeah, once you have a large enough community, you can get it done for free. They don't even have to pay somebody. I'm more making the argument they could pay somebody and it would still be easy, but like you could even just do it without paying people. What am I doing? Why did I not leave an extra space for... let's do it this way, and then the Coke will come up, and it'll go in here. Can't really see what I'm doing, but alt mode tells me where things are. I know I need one there, and there. Okay, so now I've got 4, and then we needed how much for all this? 20? 25? I just added 32, so we should be fine. And now I need some storage and an alarm. You know, additional paste settings does not have the ability to paste onto a speaker. They should add that. You can paste onto a combinator. What? Did I miss it? Where is it? Oh, there it is. This then, I don't know, let's say 5,000. Diox is the easy way to see it. Cool. Yeah, the inserter arms like being drawn over the top of the sprite. That is funny. That issue is actually a Factorio issue. That happens even in vanilla Factorio with certain arrangements of inserters. They fixed a lot of those issues, but they still exist. Okay, I want to say, other than the stone, we're done now with all of this. Oh, we need to route the CO2, don't we? Yeah, I like the tall buildings. I do think sometimes the hitboxes are a little wonky, and it's frustrating. This is one of the reasons I think it's often a good idea to build your mall. What am I trying to say? Build your bus. Hold on. Brain no work. Build your bus horizontally so that when you build your buildings, they're built vertically, and then if they have like HPFs, they have the big overlap. The overlap is just overlapping on the other buildings, and the stuff that's important is on the sides, and you can see it clearly. And I tend to do that even with vanilla buildings. Yeah, I mean, we don't have a bus, but if you are building a pi bus, which you shouldn't, then do it that way. But yeah, we're not building a bus. We're getting to trains, hopefully, someday soon. Where's the stone? Let's use this. Oh, I want you to go over that belt. Alright, that should be some more moss. That can supplement moss over here. Yeah, placing a map, like if you were building an underground and you held like control and then you clicked, it would automatically plop that one and that one. That would be cool. Oh, do we have rate problems? No, the rates are small. Yeah, 2.0 has the green highlight at max distance. That is true. That is nice, but yeah, it's not quite the same thing. Some people were saying like, oh, it's the same problem, but now it's just one tile less. But it's like, well, it will save you, because right now you do that and then you go back. Right now you'll get to green and then maybe you'll overshoot it, but some amount of time you'll get to green and be able to like stop and click before you have to go back. I do think it'll help. I do think you'll still overshoot it a lot of times, but it's nice to have that indicator. Also, side of belt. What are we doing here? Side of belt. Just happen to be the same side. Yeah, we're one-sided on the outside. Clockwise. Are we both sided on this one, though? I think we're both sided. Yeah, I'm both sided. So we want to be on the outside clockwise, which is the inside counterclockwise, which is that. All right, now we're having stone issues again. Why am I having stone issues? Carrigen. What is broken about the carrigen? You're supposed to be able to process an entire belt of carrigen. Oh no. What? Light oil? Wait. What? Aromatics. What? What's it? We're not dumping aromatics? I thought we were, but it looks like those are probably users of aromatics. Looks like we're not. Okay, time to actually find out what I'm doing then. So this this gets pumped into here, which then gets provided everything else. That's only topping up. So we're only using the light oil. Oh god. We're always using the light oil, but we're prioritizing the aromatics from Carrageen rather than this. But we're using the light oil from this so that we don't back up on middle oil or something, because we need stuff like creosote. So then this one needs an overflow on 90, which is, oh god, that's gonna waste 30,000 aromatics. I'm just gonna do a pump then. And we're gonna circuit this bad boy. And we're gonna say if it's greater than 315,000 aromatics, greater than 315 grand, then we pump out into a sinkage. And then is that enough for flow rate though? That's very high. Yeah, see, this isn't emptying out fast enough. So it actually, I need a pump in. And then that should work. Don't you want to stop when I'm full? No. Stop what? Sorry, Dave, which one do you mean? You mean the Carrageen? Or do you mean the oil? We want to void everything on Carrageen. We're trying to make sure Carrageen always runs. Okay, there we go. Like, I want these running all the time. If I have the Carrageen, I want to be shale oiling the Carrageen. So that's done. This is the bit that I'm not 1,000,000% sure on, because we're always running this one, whether we need the aromatics or not. Can light oil do anything else? I guess is the first question. Oh, I could have done the thing. Let's try the thing. Ingredient in. Okay, so right now, no, I can't do anything with it. Later, yes. Tall oil separation. Sponge iron, okay. So light oil can't be used anywhere else, which means I might as well be doing that. Carbolic and naphthalene are both creosote related, so that's just creosote and light oil. Are there any other things I can do with middle oil? No, that's literally it in the whole game. So yeah, I mean, I think this is actually all what we want, because I do need creosote and I need coke. So those are the two things we actually want. Now, which one is this that I'm backing up on? Naphthalene. And the naphthalene is the one that makes the creosote, right? Yeah, so maybe I need 2 of these. Not actually sure about this, but it just feels like I wasn't using enough. I do have combinators already, actually. I'm too lazy to set it all up. People don't like it when I leave that flashing, so I'm gonna fix it. You can thank me for it. Alright. Okay, so Carrageen processing should be fixed. This hopefully is flowing properly. No hitches, looks like. It is exact C's, which always scares me. I like to have margin. But you can trust exact C's in this game. Okay, now we should be okay. We just need a couple more trips from the stone caravans. Alright, we'll check on that in a bit. Moss is looking good. Starting to back up even. Which means... well, you guys should be running at full speed. Oh yeah, the poop. Poop is backed up. We have a backed up toilet. The Aug toilet. Okay, so then what we need is another Vrauk repro chamber. Also, someone, I think it was Dave, I know it was Dave, mentioned I only need one for a reproductive chamber, which feels very wrong to me. It'll run with just one Vrauk. I just assumed it needed two, so that felt like a little bit of a flavor fail to me. But arguments have been made that it is consistent with how the other buildings work that need animals, but I make the argument it is a flavor fail. Yeah, exactly. The animals reproduce by budding. And I feel like if that's the case, then why not just require one animal and make the building faster? You know what I mean? Like, it just kind of seems unnecessary. I'm just going to copy this because I know it's already right. And then power. We need to go find 2 Vrauks. Oh, and then the belt is too short. Alright, that should do it. And then get rid of all these water barrels. Waters go there, empties go here. Wait, I left room. I know I left room. I just forgot I left room. Sad. Okay. So what we need to do is this. Or maybe this. It's a little better. There's that, and then there. All right. Now we can fit one more. I figure one more is a good idea because we just need them for various things. They'll build up better. I don't know. I don't really have a reason not to. So, might as well. Guess is a good reason. So now that's doing a random U-turn, I guess. Which one's barrels? This one's barrels. This one's route cocoons. Copy that to there. Cool. Some mystery belt curly cues. Yeah. So future me has something to do. Exactly. Alright, I think we are done with animal nonsense for a bit. Why have these stopped? Okay, they're not. Cool, cool. I'm just gonna let that go for a while. I don't see a reason not to. They're cheap. And I have the moss now. Nope, I don't have the moss. Why are we stopped? Of course I'm out of CO2. But it's not even blinking. Did I disconnect it? I must have disconnected it. This is gonna be embarrassing. When I added the tank, did I forget to connect the bottom? I'm like vaguely thinking that's what happened. No, but almost. Yeah, I just didn't wiggle it. It needed to be wiggled. Okay. Well, you know these things happen. Whoopsies. Okay, carbon dioxide is now good to go. You can see it being vacuumed up here. And slowing down. Okay, we're good to go now. Cool, cool, cool. Check that off the list. Batteries are now within sight. Unfortunately, Helmod cannot quite help me the amount I need to be helped, so we're gonna have to manually plug in some numbers here. What's so weird is if I do like 5 here, then it links the number properly. So like, but I don't even have link selected. I have no idea what's going on with that. Because this is, yeah, this shows 5, but it's not 5, it's 32. These should always show the same number. Under all circumstances, these two should match these two, but they do not. Yeah, I mean, to put it kindly, I just think it wasn't quite bug check tested enough for release. The new features are great. There's some glaring enough issues and inconsistencies where it's like, this isn't even really doing what we need it to do right now. And that's kind of bad. Gosh, the urea is so annoying. Okay, liquid manure is literally just, you water that crap down. Quite literally. And otherwise, batteries are relatively cheap. They're mostly lead. I guess lead and zinc. Lead, zinc, some glass iron. Actually, they're quite a bit of coke, too. But then it's really just the absurd amount of manure that they need. Doing this one. Yeah. So I only have 20. So I am assembler limited by 20. So we're actually making this much per second. So I need 4 bioreactors and some DDCs. Can I even make bioreactors? What do these need? Tailings ponds, which require stone brick, which I should be close. Where's the stone brick? Over here. There's darkness in this area of the factory. Where are you? Is it in here? There it is. Oh, 100 duralumin. Ouch. Oh man, I forgot to get rid of all my barrels. Let's go do that. Oh, and lead, 140. Titanium as well. Alright, let's go get rid of... Oh, look at this handcrafting. 80 sticks, 4 pie tanks. rid of these barrels real quick. Okay. Check on the stone. How we going? It looks like we're backing up now on that one a little bit, which is good. And it seems that the Carrigen is being fully processed. I guess I can check this way. No, that's bad. Wait, no, it's fine because it also matches production. Good, okay. That's just because we're running out of Carrigen to process from time to time. And do we have lots and lots of steam, I assume? Gasoline's getting fully used. Heavy oil's getting medium used. Condensate's getting the least used. Probably because I only have 3 burners for it. But we are good on steam. Those are full. And we're ending up voiding heavy and oil and condensates, I think. Although, this should either be full or empty. It's weird that it's in the middle. I assume when we check back, it depends on how much steam we're using. I assume if we use more steam, it empties out. And if we're using less, it fills back up. So it kind of fluctuates. So the bioreactor, so we're gonna need water. Zogna is gonna be a pain in the royal booty. Again. Frickin' Zogna. How much Zogna are we making over by cDNA? I forget. We needed 2 a second? So maybe I just improve the Zogna I've already done. And we use that. I have 23 cDNA. That's actually impressive. Why is it stopped? Rubber? Yeah, definitely rubber. It's probably good because it's saving me a lot of these other resources. It's probably good that rubber's going really slow because it means I'm spending less on the others. As soon as I get more rubber, though, I'm going to start spending all those things and a million other things are going to break. That is the pyanodons experience in a nutshell. Okay, I still need more lead. More lead, more iron. Oh, I ended up with a lot of manure. Some smelly stuff in my inventory. Lead, stone brick, good. Air cores, steam engines, pipes, lead, just way up here somewhere. I probably need to be done with this episode soon. We're already an hour in. Gosh, time really does fly. Okay, lead's way up here. That's right. I also want to double check, has rubber been consistent? We had a weird lapse in rubber. I wonder what that was about. Oh, that's consumption. I am not looking in the right spot. Also weird. We have not been producing properly for a couple hours now. It should be at that exactly 6 line. So what are we short on? It's always got to be latex, right? So it's the Vrauks. We're short on the Vrauks because we were short on Vrauk cocoons because we didn't have enough bonking chambers. So hopefully I've now fixed that by having 5 of these. 0.812. Wait, you can rate calculator from zoomed out map view? Could you do max rate calculator from zoomed out map view? I don't know if you could. Or could you, and I just didn't know. Anyway, these use 0.5. These make 0.812. So that gives me 0.3 extra for the cDNA. I don't remember how much we were using for cDNA. It says 0.4, but that ain't ever happening. So I think we'll be fine. Ish. I say that. Say that now. Anyway, I need to make more bioreactors still. Lead. Which, I have no idea where I'm putting it in a chest. Also, why is there... That's okay that there's coke on this belt, I think? I hope. I think. That's rubber. Oh, that's part of the reason rubber's so slow for cDNAs. I'm saving up a gob ton of it. A glob ton of it. Let's grab some more. Speaking of wasting rubber. Grab some more IMs. How much cDNA am I using? 0 right now. Exactly 0. Where is my lead? Goes back this way. Goes down to here. There it is. I can still only make one. Now I need more glass. Gravy. Good gravy gracious. Okay, now I need one of those. So duralumin glass now. That build up to 3. Now steel. Steel's actually okay. Glass is down here. There we go. 4 bioreactors. Done. Then... Okay, so that is good. Some DDCs, and we will have our ammonia and cyanic acid. And then we'll use that, plus a bunch of other stuff that we already have. We're gonna need to get coke, lead, antimony, iron, glass, zinc. I think that's it. Iron, coke, lead, zinc, antimony, glass. That'll be it. And we'll get the melamine from the cyanic and ammonia. Sweet. Hey, Skype. Thanks for the follow. Skype. Very much appreciated. But yeah, I think that will be a good spot to end the YouTube episode. We got moss done, we got carbon dioxide improved, we got stone stuff fixed, we fixed an issue with aromatics not being properly consumed. I should probably, right before we leave, double check what can I use aromatics for? Because I could just make some more aromatics. Right now, nothing. It's just for that polybutadiene for the rubber. So, right now, I'm not really wasting any potential. I'm not too worried about that. Cool. All right, well, for those of you on YouTube, as always, leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys think. Episode 2 of the podcast should be out as well, so if you want to check that out, there's a link in the description, and it should be on any of your favorite podcast apps, and you can also view the full stream of it on Krydax Extra, which is my second channel, down in the comments. With that, I will leave you all alone. Have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Screenshot all the moss, maybe? Thanks, Aylor. I like it. I like the planes. Freight forwarding, they look pretty cool. Okay, I am going to be done streaming. I know we only did one episode of Pi, but we had the podcast too, so I'm a little talked out for this morning, I think, and I've got some stuff to get to this afternoon. So, we'll probably call it there. The Pi base is coming together. I mean, it's a hot mess, but I don't know. We keep making progress. Every episode we do more things, and I've said it once and I'll say it again. The more things you do, the more things get done, and eventually you make progress. Alright, save game, quit game. I will see you all later. Have a great Sunday.
Cargo transportation